Yes. It's part of the job, guys. You have to act like you're doing busy things. You have to act like you're doing busy things that take you away from the stream. Oh, because I'm a busy person with so many responsibilities, and everyone looks up to me. And yep, 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 yep. So, today was a fall skirmish. I did not watch it live. I watched it. The last match, right towards the end, is when I tuned in. Right as someone, I did end up watching the whole thing, pretty much the whole thing afterwards. Or I did I perused it, but basically watched all the end battles of the fall skirmish. But I tuned in right as basically someone was destroying everyone else with the fucking Infinity Sword. Infinity Sword. Grab changes its color based on the rarity of the weapon you're holding. So this is a cool idea. I'm just thinking of the implications of having something like that in the game. Nothing else really does it. I guess it doesn't really. I'm actually kind of curious who would buy it. I mean, it kind of just looks cool in and of itself. Sure, why not? Thinking a little bit too much about that. Anyways, fall skirmish.
Who do you want to see, guys? Let's keep painting this picture. I'm happy to see Vivid kind of step up there. Another thing I want to...
Fall skirmish, guys. So, a couple of the big things, big takeaways from the fall skirmish is, as I mentioned before, the fighter, the airplane's not really being used for anything other than annoyance and for people basically just to get around their mobility item. There's a lot of people that I guess are kind of outlashing over the fact that people basically can cruise around in the air and be relatively untouched. However, it's basically the same thing. You have people on the ground in boxes and you have people in the air flying around. It's not really all that different from each other. Test commentary. He's pretty good. Golden Boy is pretty good at doing announcements. He's doing pretty good at being not announcements, an announcer. He's pretty good at being an announcer for tournaments like this. It's a good thing they got him on here. Definitely not as good, I think, as Dr. Lupo and Courage. Both those guys who did the fall skirmish, I believe, did a much better job. Not particularly.
Yeah, and that's what happened. He was popping a big shield, and that was the last 30 mats, and Shaky to make that jump over. Perfectly timed and executed. It couldn't have went better for him.
This is it right here. Was if you or any of these players around you,
very nicely done.
Let's take a look here. Not particularly, like they aren't better announcers because they're good at being like driving up kind of enthusiasm and getting people into the action. Rather, they're better announcers simply because they have more knowledge of what's going on. These two guys, while they were casting this event, even though Golden Boy is the guy on the left, is pretty good at just being an announcer in general. oftentimes they just kind of don't know what they're talking about, and they kind of trail off into nothingness. Like they kind of like try to make you think like they know where they're going with things and how it's going to turn out, and then it just turns out completely different from the way they thought it was going to, and then they just kind of trail off at that point, because basically what they're talking about, they had to go back and forth with rescuing each other like multiple times during the tournament, and I guess this kind of goes with the territory. But generally speaking, I mean, esports, or there needs to be a better word for esports. Esports is so fucking stupid, but it's probably one of the easiest ways to convey to someone else what it's supposed to be. However, esports is not really... I've never been comfortable calling esports like esports, because it relates too much to sports, and then people actively compare esports to sports, and then, you know, you get the golf analogy or something. But anyways, even though these guys, he is especially good at announcing, even though he's pretty good at announcing. Donald, this is for you, Donald. We gotta give Donald his feedback, by the way. Donald Mustard, creative director of at Epic, like head creative director at Epic. Gotta give Donald his $1 million ideas, so then he can go make more millions off watching my channel in his bathrobe while eating Cheetos on the couch next to Kaplan. Like, they're probably in the same house sharing Cheetos with each other. But anyways, both these guys, even though he is a really good announcer, both these guys aren't, I would say, on top tier level as far as gameplay goes, so they don't always know exactly how things are going to turn out, or have like kind of an insight on what's going to happen. And unfortunately, it's not really something where you can just watch someone play a game and get an idea of what's going to happen. And it oftentimes leads to kind of these awkward scenarios where they're kind of driving up the hype, but then like they just start driving it up for the wrong reasons, or something's going on or something, you know. My mic working fine.
Is about to begin, and the bus is leaving from the like more on that western side from south to north.
Yeah, this is a good bus here. It's going to split the map straight up the middle, allowing all players to have access to every single POI, kind of fair and square. And, you know, when you have the map like this, everything is...
That's working fine. Okay.
You can pick wherever you want to land. And
Weird.
like Polar Peak has a
For some reason, my laptop was like 15 minutes behind my computer. Oh, yeah. But yeah. So even though these guys are... he's a pretty good announcer. I don't think this is Zeke. I think Zeke's a different guy. I don't know who this is. But anyways, even though he's a good announcer, he's not really that technical with the game. And we'll talk about the sword here in a second. We'll talk about the airplanes in a second, guys, and the impact it's having on basically competitive play, or not competitive, tournament play. Let's go with tournament play. Tournament play, so a lot of people don't know how to deal with the sword, unfortunately, and it leads to a lot of fucking weird scenarios. Basically, you have to DPS them down immediately. There's no way to get away. Unless you have mobility items, there's no way of getting away from someone with a sword. You have to DPS them down. And you'll win, because the sword only does 75 per hit. As long as you're at 200, which a lot of people will probably be at, as long as you're at 200, it's going to take 3 hits to kill you. And when you're like right there getting shot by someone, you basically have to switch to DPS, consistent DPS, and pelt them. But it's kind of funny. I guess I'm getting off topic because I was talking about the airplanes here in this, earlier. But a couple of these matches, it just goes to show you guys, I've harped before about how the spam build meta is absolutely broken. Like, some of these guys are like deers in the headlight. They're like deer in the headlight as soon as deers... They're like deer in the headlight as soon as, like, the sword guy gets... They don't have no idea what to do. They don't even try to fight back. They just die. Like, they try building or something, and then they die. It's actually pretty hilarious how kind of, how Fortnite is very, it's like crutch on building, and people have just gotten to the point where all they do is build. Like, you know, just build has turned into all they do is build. And unless they can get a nice pump and peak, like, this is what the jetpack, this is the same kind of thing we saw with the jetpack, guys. When the jetpack was introduced, which is a lot of fun, by the way, there's just, like, some people that have no idea what to do, even though you're at a huge technical disadvantage when you're flying with the jetpack, because your crosshair basically goes full bloom, no matter what. So you take a huge accuracy penalty, and all people have to do is basically just crouch and ADS on you, and you're dead. But most people didn't do that. Almost no one did that. Occasionally it started to happen. Jetpack was killed, like, in its infancy, long before long before it actually took off. Jetpack was definitely killed long before it took off because people didn't have enough time to adapt to it, and so many people bitched and moaned about the jetpack. It got vaulted before they even had a chance of basically people dealing with it. And we can see the same thing is happening here right now with the Infinity Sword, the Infinity Blade. Not particularly in this instance that you guys are watching with me, but during the tournament, basically there's a couple people that got to the end of the game with the Infinity Blade, and like the people they're facing off against, they didn't do anything. They're like bots. They didn't even, like, these are supposed to be like the best of the best players, and they couldn't even adapt to someone. Like, if you're in close quarters with someone that is literally not going to let you get away, the only thing you can do is fight. But all they try to do is run away, and they die. They just keep dying over and over and over and over again. And as I mentioned the other night when we were looking at the patch notes for Fortnite, they keep dying over and over again. And when we looked at the patch notes, I said that the regen is absolutely jack shit, which is still true. I don't think the regen helped anyone. The passive HP regen, let's start with that. The passive HP regen helped anyone, and it's true. It takes 400 seconds basically to end up at full health, and that's like 6 minutes. And there's no fucking way in a tournament you're gonna have 6 minutes sitting alone in a corner, especially at the end of it, just regenning health. Absolutely worthless. The 50 HP on kill, I mentioned before, I still think is too low, and I would still agree with that. It's just that almost no one knew how to actually deal with someone with the Infinity Blade. And it was actually pretty weird. Not no one. A lot of people had no way of dealing. They didn't know how to deal with it. And basically, you just have to DPS it. You have 3 hits to kill the guy. You can't outbuild. Kind of one of the weird things is, though, you can't block hits either. So if you build, there is a bubble on the sword. There's like it's like a cleave bubble. I don't think maybe it is a complete 360, but it's a bubble, and that's kind of like a rod. Wonder. It's a bubble. It's a sphere. It's a sphere of damage, guys. And if you build, I saw people in the tournament, even if they built, the build structure would not eat the damage from the sphere of the sword. And I guess kind of rightfully so. I also saw some low-ping fucks that were able to basically outbuild the sword, which is kind of weird. Some things that they have to do if they want to keep this in the game, some things they have to do to tweak it, and it's not to get rid of it or vault it. The chat is so, like, just, I can only imagine what the professional streamers are like after watching the tournament and watching people win with it. On occasion win with it. I think only one guy won with it. But just like the amount of disruption it causes in the tournament, and people just hiding like this in little corners.
Looking to connect here. I like how Salt's really cooking up these dynamites so that when he chucks it, very little reaction time is, left for innocent.
But anyways, with the sword, it's a sphere. And when someone builds, it's a sphere, it's a void sphere, it'll do damage through objects. So if there's a build, I've seen a couple people that were in the tournament where they built, and the structure should have ate the damage from the sword, but it didn't. And then they didn't take damage from it. Or they took damage from it, I should say. So people actually took damage, you take damage through buildings. And I would actually say, kind of funny, there's a lot of big streamers that are in the tournament, and they just basically didn't go anywhere. Kind of interesting in and of itself. Speaking of which, this is basically a tournament of online tournaments I 100% do not believe in due to technical advantages in addition to obvious cheating, or not obvious, but cheating that happens as well. Basically, if you're playing for hundreds of thousands of dollars, you're going to cheat. There's a lot of people that are going to cheat simply because that's, a lot of money. That's a lot of fucking money, and all you have basically that's going to happen if you cheat is you'll get banned. But on the other hand, you could win hundreds of thousands of dollars. There's a lot of incentive there to cheat, unfortunately. But anyways, kind of disruptive. I do like the fact that there's actually chaos and disruption happening here. If you look at the end of the game in these tournaments, they're all way too clinical. Good word for that. Clean. Yeah, they're very clinical, meaning like it just feels like you aren't really playing a game anymore. It doesn't feel like there's anyone that can actually make a play that's outside of the normal, besides just like editing a tile and shooting at someone then editing it back, which is fucking stupid. It all turns very safe and methodical. And honestly, games should not turn out that way. We'll get back to the planes here in a second, which we'll see flying around. And we'll talk a little bit more about like low ping fucks and how it changes the gameplay, because you can literally see it happening with the airplanes, especially for the airplane-to-airplane combat. There's one very, very notable situation that I remember. I think it's in the first battle with two people flying around, and one guy looked like he wasn't even shooting at the guy. It looked like he's shooting behind him because he's shooting at where he is on his screen, and it's not remotely close to where the guy actually is on like the server. Because I'm pretty sure this is the observer feed from the server, so these guys are like they have like a super low latency connection to the server or something. We'll take a look at it in a second. But anyways, with the Infinity Blade, it's a chaos element, and I'm sure there's gonna be tons of people that are gonna be freaking out and just like calling for removal because they're just pump and peak, and the only thing they can think about is pump and peak, and anything that violates pump and peak is just going to drive them through the air, just like completely. Something they definitely need to do is make it so airplanes take damage when they collide with structures. Right now, they're kind of like the bike where it just goes through shit. And basically, people are using it to just run people over and stuff. That needs to be removed. Not removed, but made it so there's actually a hazard to the pilot that's doing it. Right now, there really isn't. Damage definitely needs to take damage when they fly into structures, fly through structures, stuff like that. The airplane needs to take durability damage. But, anyways, going back to the Infinity Blade, there's some people that are going to call for the removal of it because they think that it's completely unbalanced because it can just like hack through structures, which is actually really good because there's almost nothing in the game right now. Like everything that actually does damage to buildings is so limited in the use compared to how easily you can spam build that it just makes for completely uneventful, I want to say, uneventful gameplay.
Someone managed to pull off the chug jug, but it looks like he's got an extra one here. He's got loads of heals, so he can kind of chill in the storm for a little bit. But yeah, 11 Anthony, he's not.
You have a low enough ping, basically, you can literally block the world out of existence. But anyways, the Infinity Blade. The way, like, there's just like people that are like deer in the headlights, and like I mentioned before, it's like jetpacks where people just didn't know how to respond to it. They didn't know how to act when they're around someone that basically was just going to near melee. They just run up and kill them. It's melee, right? And in doing so, they should really just be, balls deep on them back with like a shotgun, but no one carries around really sustained damage because this game's all about burst. It's all about pump and peak. It's all about burst damage nowadays. So almost no one carries around something like attack or I don't know, assault rifles are extremely good at sustained damage. The P90 is also pretty good at sustained damage. But anything that can just lay down a load of fire, because everyone is basically built around 200 HP. So the moment someone survives like a pump and then like a couple SMG bullets, they don't know what to do with their life. But kind of the weird thing with the sword here, is like when people are diving at you, you basically just have to focus the guy that's just jumping around and hitting stuff, and it will become more common where people actually focus him. But at the end of the game, let's just like fast forward to this right here to the last one. This is where I tuned in and I saw this. Bar. This is the end of the game. I forgot who has the sword right now, but anyways, basically the same shit. This is like I mentioned before. This is what tournament play basically turns into, or competitive gameplay, which is everyone hiding in boxes. No ways, because of the way building works in this game. There's no actual downside to building. There is no limitations to how fast and how often you can build. There's nothing. The only limitation is basically your materials, and at the end of the game, everything gets caked with just mats, and everyone just sits in a box. Because there's no way of securing kills, especially against people with very low pings. Eventually you just end up like you're just literally beating your head against a wall, so just no one does it, and then the storm still ends up killing 2/3 of the players at the end of the game. Now the impact that the Infinity Blade has made is basically the Infinity Blade player can just like tear down structures, which is basically something the game has needed, not necessarily with an Infinity Blade with a melee weapon with like one person that can wield the power basically. What it's needed is just the ability for people to wantonly blow up buildings, so people have to commit to fights Like, some of these people are all they do is build. Like, that's it. That's all they do. Like, they just try to run away with their mats out. And, like, so many times you'll actually just see it where they just run away with their gun out. This guy's actually shooting back. But even then, like, you can see him, like, just trying to spin around, and you can't even do that. Like, as far as, like, players go and being, like, cream of the crop, the best players in the world, you have some people that can't even react to someone who is just spinning a sword around. Like we aren't even talking, like, it's not a battle of trying to build. It's right now is just like a DPS. You have to DPS the guy down. He has 200 health. And he will just die, but you have to shoot him. Like, all they do is just build. That's, like, look at this Johnny guy that he's being chased right there at the top. And he killed him. And there's just another guy where, like, they aren't even really doing anything. He just ran away. That other guy, I'm pretty sure he just took a jump pad and ran away. But, like, this guy's just jumping around everywhere, and no one's shooting him, really. Like, that's all that's going on. The HP regen for the sword is, like I said, nothing. It's 1 HP. That is absolutely nothing. Even if it's 5 HP, that would be, like, fucking nothing. But just, like, he's just jumping around, and, like, no one's focusing him. Everyone is super focused on, like, their spam builds. Like, to the point where just no one even... This guy literally just, like, shredded the entire... Look at everyone going, like, Resident Sleeper. And then they'll eventually just go to nays, because that's not the way you're supposed to play Fortnite, right? But it just goes to show you just how fucked up, like... The skill set for being a tournament player in this game is so select. We talked about this before with the jetpacks, which really disrupts the game. Because people, all they do is they just go for the advantage where they're looking down over the top of someone or open a window and then they peek. And they can't deal with, like, a normal PvP situation. And I'm not saying that, like, someone swinging a sword around is a normal PvP situation. But in other games, if it's fight or flight and then your ball's against the wall where you don't have a method to escape, like, just no one does anything. Like, they don't know what to do. They don't know that they just basically have to DPS this guy, and instead it just results in them just running around like chickens with their head cut off, even though he's basically just wantonly swinging his sword around, you know? And he only gets 50 HP back per kill, too, and just, like, look, this guy, like, he's just trying to build, and as I mentioned before, it's void damage, it just goes through everything, so even if you build, it doesn't block shots. And, like, people they just stopped caring. And, like, kind of weird thing is that people, like, there was a guy, these aren't any examples of it. I think it was in a different match. I don't remember which match it was in. But there was a guy that he's facing against with a really low ping. And every time he'd swing the sword, he'd just build the wall back instantly. And he couldn't actually get inside the structure. Once again, 1 by 1, if you have a low enough ping, just being, like, being a object of invulnerability. Basically, just nothing can kill you. And all he did was just build back his 1 by 1 until the guy with the sword left. Basically what happened. I'm pretty sure he left. Like, he couldn't get inside the building, regardless of what he was doing. Or he jumped through the building, and then the guy just went the other direction. But, like, just all these people were around, and all this guy's doing is just swinging his sword, and just... They aren't really even fucking doing anything! Just, like, all these people are, like, these are tournament players. You know, like, the best of the best sort of shit. Like, this is one of the... this is, like, one of the qualifiers to get you into, like, the end of the game. And these guys can't even fucking deal with the guy with the sword. Like, it's just hilarious. And this isn't the first game that's had, like, melee in it. And you just have to commit... It's just like, this guy, all he's doing is building. Like, all they do is build. They just build, and that's it. That's all this game's become, is just spam build. It's just pump and peek and spam build, and if anyone disrupts your build, like, you don't know what to do, and then you fucking freak out. And it's like they just get pushed out of their little closure. And as I mentioned before, and why I thought the jetpack was actually a really good idea, is because it disrupts this bubble that you make for yourself with building. Because it means that if you just build up, you aren't always going to be at the absolute technical advantage of playing the game. And there's going to be so many people that are going to call for removal of this, and this might just be a seasonal item. It's not going to make it past... I was actually surprised that it was in the tournament, to be perfectly honest. But putting that aside, this is a seasonal item, probably that won't make it past basically the end of the season when they move into the next season. This is going to be something for Christmas, and then it's going to be gone in the springtime. Just like shit like this over here, where like these guys are neighing about the guy swinging his sword around and basically just murdering everyone. But there's ways to play against it, and it's not just like, you know, even then you can use some like a mobility item to get away or reposition yourself, but all people do is try to build. That's it. Like so many of these players, all they do is build, they don't even fire back. And then like it's kind of the weird thing like I've talked about before in other games is like in Battlefield for instance, is just people that shoot at the easy target rather than someone that might possibly kill them. It's really weird. It's not particular to Battlefield, it's not particular to Fortnite. It is like a human consciousness thing. It's like like ingrained in some people where like cuz they start freaking out about stuff. So when you're in this moment of kind of like freaking out, instead of going after the target that can kill you, you go after the easy kill because it's something you know you can actually secure. So for instance here, if we're talking about this is like a lot of the kills were like that. A lot of the kills were like that. But if we look at one in particular, I think this is too far back. Yeah. Here's a recap guy. Not this guy. This guy kind of looks like a hobo. I don't know. He's probably a great programmer or something. But the guy at the end of the game that does recaps, they need a new one of those. Also, his voice doesn't really work very well. That's part of the announcement game. You just have to have the voice for it to be an announcer. But anyways, the one in particular we're looking at here that I was talking about is the second to last kill. Those two guys that are fighting it out. So at the end of the game, you just have this shit going on where this guy's just literally hopping around. No one's paying attention to him. You can hear him. He makes a lot of noise. No one really pays attention to him. No one, like, cares that this guy is literally just walking around with a sword. Like, it's kind of really fucking weird. It's very, very weird. And as I mentioned before, one of the problems I had with Fortnite is that it went to just this kind of lethargic building battle. That's it. And that's the only thing. Building should definitely be part of the game. That's Fortnite, right? It should definitely be part of the game. But the game has become so methodical and lethargic that they don't even know what to do. They just like there's people around. They're just like nah. I guess I'll die now. Nah. It's like shit you find in pubs, and this is a tournament. It's these guys right here, not right here. These two guys at the end here. Like this guy, he's not even focusing. He's just like he's about to get jumped on. He doesn't even fucking react to him. Like what is this shit? Like, this is a big deal. This guy right here is a big deal, and I'm not talking because of the player that's playing him. The guy with the sword is a eminent threat to your survivability, and there's just people that just ignore him because they're just, like, looking for a kill or something that's easy to do. Yeah, and they say stuff like it's anyone's game to win, stuff like that. Just like, look, it's just like building. That's it. That's all he's doing, guys, is just building. Just build. Now, right here is what I'm talking about. These two guys right here. Look at that. They're still fighting. This guy is literally jumping through their structures and just, like, blowing up shit. And, like, they're even looking at him. They aren't doing anything. They're just trying to kill each other. And, like, this is the big threat on the map is this guy right here. Like I said, this game has become, and I really like Fortnite, but this game has become just like this kind of brain-dead build battle, and that's all it is, because you expect, no matter what, your structure will protect you. And this is probably the only actual... You could actually see some of the shots not doing damage to him, by the way, with that last guy. But difficult because he moves 30% faster. It's difficult to actually outrange him. But this is where basically you focus fire, and it doesn't matter if there's people around you. You try and kill this, because otherwise you're gonna end up in a 1v1. And if he's at full health, which he basically was because he killed so many people, basically God mode. But like part of the problem isn't that the sword is super fucking OP. Part of the problem here is the fact that just no one paid attention to the guy with the Infinity Blade. That's kind of the weird thing. Is like it's brand new, and as I mentioned before, it's kind of weird that Epic just allowed this in the tournament because it just happened today. It literally got turned on Tuesday. This sword got turned on Tuesday, and it's kind of weird that they didn't allow people to acclimate to it before they just threw it into the tournament. However, but this is a telling sign of just basically how kind of like your top tier players here are like they don't know what to do. They don't even try. Like they give up. Like he's just running away. He's like, oh my god, I got to build. I just got to build more. Just got to build more, guys. Just build, and then he died. And that's like I said, one of the reasons stuff like jetpacks and things that blow up structures should be in the game. And then like the community freaks out, so this is probably going to get removed because that's just the way the community is. There's no way you can't do anything other than pump and peek in Fortnite. And putting aside my technical problems I have with the game as far as latency goes and servers go, this in and of itself is just a telling sign of just basically how, like, I keep saying brain dead, but like how unreactive people are to the game and how they expect it to always be the same. And it's like they didn't even play today or something. Like they didn't practice. They didn't watch streams where people are jumping around with the sword doing shit like this. But like just all these people, they don't do anything. They don't even shoot at them. They're like, oh my god, this guy's just jumping around the open. I'm just gonna build. And you're like, but this honestly is what the game needs. It needs something like this that just fucking jumps around and destroys structures, because the end of these games are just like they're just walls. It's just bunches of walls, and you're unable to secure kills until like the last circle where it's like slurping together, and you better hope that it doesn't turn into a heal off. Because it's just like it's actually what the game needs, where you can just destroy structures this easily. But anyways, like besides the one guy that I mentioned earlier with a really low ping that was just able to outbuild this guy just by spamming like not even outbuild, like building a bunch of structures going all over the place or something. He outbuilt him by just spamming a wall, and he could wall faster than the guy could actually attack, and he got with the sword basically lost. That was earlier. But anyways, the sword is 100% going to get removed from the game, like especially for tournaments. It's not going to be in the tournaments. The community outcry is going to be absolutely insane to something like this because it fucks up so much of the gameplay. Like the meta gets changed so much by the fact that someone can literally just like just jump through structures, and like especially with ping, where ping becomes such a huge crutch for people as far as their ability to just continually build and build faster than everyone else. You have something that literally just straight out counters what they crutch on, and then they can't even play the game. They can't even react to it. And I'm not saying all players in Fortnite are bad or anything like that, but this is where we've gone, is to the point where, like I've mentioned before, there's just some people that just try to trap. And it's not that they're that good that they're looking to BM players, but because trapping is so OP and structures are so OP. Like if they have enough materials and enough traps, they can kill you pretty easily. And it's easier than actually participating in a battle, and it's safer because there's no downsides to building. There's absolutely no downsides to building. So, like I mentioned, it's going to get removed, but it's something the game needs. Like, people at the end of the game, they don't even have explosive weapons. They don't even carry explosives anymore. In a game that's all about building, they don't even carry explosive weapons. Like, what is this? Like the thing that is supposed to, like, finish the game, is supposed to decisively ruin someone's builds, don't even do their job in the game. They don't even carry them. They don't even carry around shit at the end of the game. They don't even carry grenade launchers or anything. All they carry are, like, they just carry projectile weapons. That's it. Absolutely fucking disgusting. And people don't find problems with this in Fortnite. I mean, this is like a meta problem right now. This is like problems with the fact that this game has just turned into pump and peek, where you try to get above someone and just peek them and pump them with the shotgun, and that's basically it. That is the end of the game. And then, like, the community bitched so much about the pump shotgun that they got a more powerful pump shotgun, regardless of the fact that they're essentially just carrying around the pump shotgun, which the game didn't need another pump shotgun, remotely need another pump shotgun. They did it because the community bitched so much about it. And it honestly, it didn't fucking make sense.
You don't want to 1v1 that thing.
No.
Not unless you're super prepared loadout-wise.
Mijo. Or Mijo, which is even funnier now that I say it out loud, but Mijo, he's eliminated. Mijo gets taken out there. Boy.
But that's where the game went. In Season 5, everyone was complaining about spam spam meta where they're actually dying in their builds, like where if they're stuck in a 1x1, they couldn't just stay in for infinity, forever. They couldn't just stay in their 1x1 invulnerability forever, and they would take attrition damage through panels as they get blown off. People bitched about it until basically we were back at pump and peak, and it makes for really kind of boring gameplay. Cause like this game's all about like risk reward and changing things up, right? It's fucking Fortnite. It's supposed to be wacky and different and crazy, and instead all we are at is basically pump and peak. All we're doing now is pump and peak.
Alright, now it's Kaysid putting on the pressure here. Oh no! He must be salty to get bumped off like that. We've seen it happen to Cease earlier, and now to Kaysid falls victim to the bully.
What caused that?
That's the bully play.
That is the bully play. You don't want to fight on a mountain for that reason, let alone hold the edge. Someone will come in and get you.
And some players, they're going to charge for that one every time.
That's a bug or something.
We have a good little fight here going on between Outlet and
But anyways, scrolling back.
as well with that Infinity Blade. Get another look at it. Oh, so clean, so clean. And, you know, we call that 200 eyes.
Not every game ended with the Infinity Sword. Just the end match was the most obviously bland example of just how kind of derpy people are in the game as far as building goes, where they just expect the building to do all the work. How do you get the sword? You pull it from a rock after the game starts for, it's like a minute, and then it spawns in a rock or something at one of the locations in the game. There's only one in the game. That's supposedly the quote, you know, the balancing mechanic for it. But honestly, what this means is just, regardless of the sword being in the game, there needs to be more items in the game that actually disrupt, and there aren't that many things. The planes disrupt. But like the game has become so methodical that it's just about spam building and getting above someone. I don't want to watch that other guy outside the thing. But anyways, if we scroll back here, people are going to 100% call for the removal, at least in tournaments, and honestly, I don't want to say I can't blame them, because I definitely do blame them. I think the game needs it. It doesn't need a legendary item that only one person can get. It needs items that allow you to disrupt building, because explosive weapons don't do their job. And the explosive weapons that did do their job, like C4, they just removed from the game. So, even at the end of the game, this is what happens. This is what happens. There's just people hiding in boxes. Got launched off a zipline halfway across the map the other day and died. Yeah, there's some physics bugs with ziplines. So this is kind of the weird thing. We'll see if we see here. People are probably gonna say that planes are super fucking OP and they need to be removed. They don't. It's just another way of basically loitering until the end of the game. Literally, planes, you know, if you have a SUV, it just loiters in the air. UAV. It just, you know, loiters around the area. They don't even fight because they can't shoot each other, and I'll get to that in a second. Planes are relatively new. But people are like, oh my god, this is so boring. Planes are so OP. You don't need to participate in battles, you know, but you get shot at just the same as anyone on the ground. It's another box, only it's a box that flies around the sky. Like I mentioned before, that's the reason I don't see planes being super broken. Planes do need to do more damage when they explode. They do need to do like 125 when they explode if you're near them, so people will actually get the fuck out of, you know, dodge. And if they're low on health, they have to bail out or actually react to the situation. They need to take collision damage with structures, or more collision damage than they're currently taking when they collide with structures, to avoid people just kind of steamrolling through buildings. Although, once again, as I mentioned, the game really needs stuff that does it in the game. They need stuff that disrupts building. And while people are going to freak the fuck out about the planes and the sword, the game needs it. Look at this. There's a bunch of people right next to each other that can't even, like, they can't fight each other. Like, they can, but they don't, because it's, like, why would you? Why would you do that when basically the ultimate defense in the game is building? So why would you actually try to shoot people? There isn't any reason. The only time they actually take a chance is when they edit, shoot, and then they unedit again. Like right here, this guy, he's getting shot by another guy basically in a pillbox, just shooting in his location. Wish you could see the ping of these players. You can't. Like, we'd have to go on if they're streaming or something. All these guys are getting squished. But like it's 100% what this game needs is stuff that disrupts building, because this is what the game has become. There's no limitations to building, so like I mentioned, building is 100% unhinged in this game. It's something that doesn't have any balancing to it. There's like people talk about counters all the time. There's no counters to building. There's nothing that ruins your ability to build or makes it so you can't build as fast or anything. So this sword, by the way, is an awful lot like, was this the guy I was talking about before? Yeah. Yeah, by the way, that's what it looks like if you have a low enough ping, guys. There's just no way you can actually get near someone. And it doesn't matter. So, once again, you're just looking at a counter to someone with the sword, that they can build fast enough. Like, not necessarily because of their APM, but because of the fact that they have a low ping. It's like people just ignoring him. Oh, both these guys are fucked. Yeah. And this is the one where they get squished. Mountains are like the biggest trolls in the game. And I'm pretty sure they set the end zone by mountains specifically for this, because there's some people that just don't pay attention to their environment at all. And they really shouldn't make it to the end of the game. Like, they shouldn't make it to the end of the game. Because, honestly, if you don't watch the circle at the end of the game, you're pretty bad. And you shouldn't... This is supposed to be the tournament with all the best players, right? And obviously some people make mistakes, and sometimes, you know, you just don't happen to be watching. There's tons and tons of people that die to the circle, though. So I can't imagine, you know, all these people are really experienced, and you just happen to don't be paying attention, you know, at the end of the game. Yeah, all they do is it's like looking for easy picks while staying in your 1-by-1. No one makes plays because there aren't any plays to make, because anyone can just outbuild you majority of the time, and you get like the one rando that's walking around in the open for whatever reason. Like an easy kill. But it's funny, people like this, and then you get the guy with the Infinity Sword like we saw in the last game. And just people, like, even though they're at the end of the game here, and even though they look like they're completely skilled, you just get someone swinging a sword around at the end of the game, jumping through structures, and people don't know how to kill them. They don't know what to do about it. It's all about pump and peek, guys. That's this game. And latency. You have to have a low ping. It's funny, too, like, when people try to break structures, no one actually looks for root structures. Almost no one looks for root structures, meaning they look for the base of the build. Instead, they try to blow up the structure tile. Like, if you look at all these buildings, they're supported by, like, maybe two tiles. And no one actually looks for the 2 tiles. Like, it's not... this isn't something that just happened in this tournament. It's basically just... If you look at the builds, they're just basically supported by, like, 2 tiles. And no one looks for the root tile. They always just try to shoot the tile that someone's standing on. Or on top of or next to. Really fucking weird.
Super hop right now, I think. There it is. No.
Still need to be careful.
Okay, still playing for position. Interesting.
But anyways, there's a bunch of people that are freaking out about this, I'm sure, right now. There's going to be a bunch of people calling to get it removed. Honestly, the sword is not that great. Once people figure out how to play against it, people like with the sword are going to get focused immediately, and they're going to die.
He's got plenty of materials. Still 40 seconds till.
Although it does seem kind of weird as far as balancing goes. It does seem kind of weird that there's no cooldown on the jump, where you can jump around the battlefield.
True, he does have more HP. This is gonna be interesting. I mean, he's got.
I don't know what this guy with the sword is doing, because he doesn't have any heals.
Now 130, now 140. I mean, we haven't seen a heal off in so long.
Good. Heal off should not happen.
I don't know if it does.
No, Outlet now realizes he's got to go for it.
They drop
Jumps
down.
in, Outlet gets High Sky. He's got to fight. Rules catches him. Nicely done for Outlet. No hit.
Kind of weird how like people like that, or he's just building, but he doesn't actually build a square. Like he doesn't move his square. He just builds a roof. These are the best players, guys. These are the tourneys, guys. These are the cream of the crop. This is top 200 in the U.S. or something. Yeah.
Necessarily picking up Elam's right there. So
Infinity Blade.
Alright, here's Kenneth. That's his infinity.
There's 33 left.
Kinda hanging out.
It's this, like I mentioned, this game
Time for the next storm
is
wave,
way too.
and then get to it.
There's not enough ways of dealing with building, and there's no downsides to building. There needs to be, so people aren't just hiding in boxes. So people actually make plays, so stuff actually happens. Other than slow progression and 1x1s worming.
You know, first time I'm seeing it, so but we'll see as we're on board and following him a little bit more. Saf though,
It's all about safe kills, guys. That's it.
That little standoff against him, I'm pretty sure like Kiwi there. Nice pick for.
Hold their building mats. There isn't any way of dealing with this. So, like, even, let's say you want to take explosives to the end of the game. Like, if you have 3 grenades or even 10 grenades at the end of the game, it's not really going to mean that much. And at most, you can carry around probably 18 nades with the grenade launcher, right?
There you go.
But that's like nothing compared to how fast people can build. Explosives don't really do anything.
Be the first player in game to here to secure himself a.
But anyways, going back to airplanes. So airplanes are kind of this weird fucking thing where people think it's broken because you can fly around, and that makes you basically immune to damage, which it doesn't. It's just like it's difficult to shoot someone in an airplane, like it's difficult to shoot someone by one.
That's right.
So people are gonna people are freaking out about airplanes being like the ultimate end game item, and they aren't really. It helps you rotate. It helps you avoid damage, but you can just do that on the ground too by building 1x1s and worming. So
Incredible last couple minutes there. Hopefully, we see a couple more replays from him because the shots he's making is it's pretty crazy. Here comes Posick jumping right off the storm wing. He's at 3.
I don't even know why he did that. What are you gonna accomplish doing this?
Area here. And that was
This is for the same reason people don't. He's just you've jumped off the storm wing and now he's in a 1x1.
ground area,
Like,
not too bad.
why? Why would you do that? Honestly, I'd fly a storm wing around in a circle until basically the end of the game, and then I'd just try to ram it straight down like a pile driver through the buildings that are there at the end of the game, and explode on the ground or something. What happens up before the end? Like, I don't even know why I build out. It didn't look like he was on fire or anything. Like he was gonna make a play, but you can't make plays in this game. You can't decisively end action because if anyone can spam build, then like there's no limits on spam building in this game. Absolutely no limits. Bunch of pump and peek. And then usually a lot of these deaths just end up with like a third party or something. It's kind of weird how people can be like right next to you and you just don't notice that they're there. Very weird.
And that will send him back to the lobby. Posick, he made that rotation and uses the jump pad to get out of it as quickly as he possibly could, but he has 10 HP and a dream.
He's got to be extremely careful where he decides to land, just barely pulling off that land there. That was actually super clutch here. We have E-Man still alive, and here comes Floss, and now deciding that it is time to bring out the Infinity Blade. Learning from Psalm to try and crush down some builds.
But Flossin still has
It's kind of weird how people, like, early on, this is what was happening, where people are playing with the Infinity Blade, and all they do is they play like they're using just a normal weapon. Kind of weird in and of itself. Outside of streaming, I play HOTS. Here's the Storm. A lot of fun. If you're a hardcore MOBA player, you probably won't like it, but Infinity Blade. Here's the Storm is actually a lot of fun. On stream, I've been playing Battlefield 5. This is something to do and something to play until they fix Fortnite. And Black Ops kind of went the way of the dodo. The people that play it don't really play Blackout anymore, and it kind of lost its momentum. In addition to that, I really disliked dying to people in shadows that I couldn't see. Shadows were too dark. And I refused to gamma jack, so it's always gamma jacking, guys. If a game's too dark, just say no, it's not, and you gamma jack.
He still has that grapple hook as well, Monster. So Posick, if he needs to be able to jump down, maybe use the grapple, reposition himself, he can.
He can even save himself from falling.
Anyways, guys, let's cover what I was talking about earlier with the guys that just can't kill each other. Let's see if I can find this. He is in first game.
He fights. Now, Elam and
The person who's defended himself well is on for
to take the bait.
Exer still out of that.
Yeah,
And there's a Stormwing.
They really should. So like they went over this kind of cool thing at the beginning here. Is they covered the moments from the Euro. They should actually make a show on this. They have so much content, Fortnite, and they have so many people working for them. They should actually make like a end game show that they'll do like maybe a week afterwards after they get everything together, where they talk about like what's going on in the battle and what's changed, and they could literally make a show about it, right? And it'll give them the ability just to keep the momentum going and give people something to watch and, you know, learn something or think about or just be entertained, you know. Let's see if we can find it. It was pretty hilarious because there's just like one guy just flying around trying to shoot another guy and he couldn't. So airplanes are very much server objects. They aren't like on a client side, so it makes it they're very rigid in that how you interact with other people. Ninja was in this tournament, by the way. He died. He always died in like the top 50. Yep, this is where they're covering. Yeah, they don't even explode when they run into each other either. It's kind of airplanes in this game very weird. They're like helicopters.
Shots in the sky here. I'm not really sure what he's up to. Oh, he's trying to ping.
Oh, these are the two guys. Watch these guys. So I think it's Vix that tried to shoot someone else down. Like the reason that these guys don't shoot at each other is probably not because they don't want to shoot each other down. It's because they can't hit each other. So this guy right here, it's either that or they're really, really bad at flying. I haven't really figured it out yet, but based on what I've seen, it seems like they can't shoot each other.
Pistola's vehicle looks like it's starting to smoke just a little bit there. You have wigs in the air, Mitro in the air.
This isn't like Battlefield dogfighting, guys. This is fucking hilarious.
For the North American semifinals, we've had some great games so far.
Not that it's been a problem, but if we do hit the storm surge for players that haven't really damaged other players, they're gonna start taking damage for being alive this long.
Exactly, because they clearly haven't been doing that.
Right, they're just floating around at the moment. Here's another Elam for.
Yeah, it's boring. That's why they swapped off of it. Let's see if we can. That wasn't what I was thinking of. Let's see if we can find it. If they tried to show off their airplane combat, it's really bad. Airplanes are basically just later vehicles. This is too far. I think I watched it earlier tonight when I was working out. Pretty sure. I think that was the first match. Oh, let's see. Pretty sure it was first match. Cool that they add little interviews. That's what big esports do.
And someone's gonna go against someone else. It's just about
so swallow without
shy of the.
I wonder if Aiden saw him. Surely I wonder.
There's our good old console player that only can slay people and can't actually finish the end of the game, much like most console players.
Everyone's kind of waiting it out.
Not actually, they're PC controller players on PC.
I'm willing to put money that Aiden's gonna be the first guy to hit big bonus.
Yeah, because you have aim assist.
That are being presented to you and really have much of an angle. He's going up
where players get.
Find it, guys.
You're really leaning.
You take those are just flying around the map. It's so shy of the stone cap there. He's got a little bit more wood to put in his resource pool, but so far so good. He's got an easy rotation.
Look
that he has
at all
of
those storm wings in the sky.
Oh my gosh.
We're gonna have a straight up dogfight. We're gonna have a straight up dogfight.
No.
Someone's gonna go against someone else. It's
Oh.
just about. It's a matter of when, right? When are you gonna take advantage of your position with the storm ring? And here it is, just coming right in on Pleasant Park players.
Oh.
It's a
Yeah.
nosedive.
He actually killed himself doing that.
Wait, no.
Yeah, he did. Because remember, you take damage now when your plane
So if you do come in too close, you actually do kill yourself. But that's like you have to literally be like diving into the ground to do that.
Mitro's still alive in Pleasant Park as well, just outside of Ghost.
HOTS is super fun when you tried it out. Yeah, it's a fun game. People kind of shit on HOTS because it's not like League of Legends or Dota 2. Yeah, like if you do stuff like that, your plane should take some damage doing that.
Not, oh, never mind. So Novice is still alive.
Just flying around.
Let's see if we can find it.
Down right there. So he is now, you know, risking his stay in this match at the moment. It's
To work with in the sky.
control.
What's going on? What's going on?
He grabbed it.
There's nothing. Needs to be very. I mean, we have heard of. Still alive and
Resource in picking up.
I'm very good at it.
This is playing a little
third party points.
Dynamite as well. He's got it back.
Fix is.
Oh, there's a third player jumping his
I think this is it. Yeah, watch this. Yeah, this is definitely it, where it turns into a three-way and they can't shoot each other. Check this out, guys. So, as I mentioned before, this game has a lot of issues, and the lower your ping is, it kind of gives you like invulnerability, and people are basically unable to shoot you, and your shots generally register. And you'll watch here in a second, as you're watching one airplane try to shoot another airplane, and being completely unable to land shots on it, and it looks really, really fucking stupid. It looks like they can't aim, which I assume they can, and let's go even a little bit step further, is they can lead projectiles, meaning if it's a projectile weapon, they can, you know, aim a little bit ahead to get the projectile to land on where they're aiming. As I mentioned, Fortnite is all about low latency. Low latency gives you a huge advantage in the game, and this is an online tournament, which means it's going to have a lot to do with low latency. So this Vix guy is trying to shoot Salm here. Now watch where the shots are, and watch where the airplane is. It literally looks like he's just fucking around with this guy, or trying to support him or something. But Vix is shooting where this guy is like a second ago. So on his screen, he's trying to shoot Salm, but he can't. He's like, it looks like he's shooting him, but he can't shoot him.
Yeah, so he's getting shot at, but he doesn't really care. He's pressuring other players at the same time. So far, so good for Vix. Looks like he's in the lead here as far as this little battle goes.
Like, it almost looks like they're just fucking around, but I'm pretty sure Vix is trying to kill Salm. And then you got another, unless this is just some sort of three guys working together, this guy in the back is trying to shoot Vix, and he can't shoot him. Like, there is some really, really big desync issues happening here. And to the point where basically they can't have air combat, like they can't shoot at each other in airplanes.
He's still leading in eliminations. Not far behind him is Ghost Aiden and Ronaldo TV. Both these players are sitting at 3 elims, the only players so far in the match to score themselves some points. And 7 EOTV, who we also saw in round 1 as well, or game 1. And
Either that or everyone in this game is really, really bad at flying, and they've never flown a vehicle ever. Yeah, that in a nutshell just gives you an idea of just like how fucked up kind of like the netcode is in this game, and it always favors people with low pings. Let's watch this again, guys. Yeah, like the third guy he eventually just breaks off because he can't shoot him, and it's like the whole reason no one's fighting is because they can't shoot each other.
Positioning as far as grounds go, and it looks like other
Yeah,
players
it's pretty impressive, guys.
This is the player he beamed out the sky with the Stormwing, so he's gonna get this loot.
Guy does not like him at all. There's going to be a player to his right.
And I don't know if it's because they're unable to lead rounds, or they've just never played a Battlefield game, or they've never flown before. But, like, the reason all those airplanes are flying around and no one's shooting at each other is generally because no one can actually shoot at like, your bullets just don't do anything. So there's no point in actually trying to have a dogfight, because you can't dogfight. Yeah, so look where the guy's bullets are landing look where Salm was, and then look where the bullets for Vix are going. Basically where Salm is like a second earlier, maybe half a second earlier. So there's quite a bit of delay. And in general, like, he can't even shoot Salm. Like, he can't land any bullets on him, nothing. Obviously, if you're playing, you're like the Vix guy in the back, this is where you lead targets. I'm pretty sure the bullets that come out of these airplanes are projectiles. They aren't hit scan. So obviously you need to lead the target, and he's not really doing that. But on his screen, I bet Vix is actually shooting at where the guy was, like where he actually is on his screen. And this is the server side. This is what it looks like on the server when they're trying to shoot each other. This is what the server sees, which is that Vix isn't shooting him at all. And on Vix's screen, he's probably actually shooting another airplane. And it's just not doing anything, and he's like, what the fuck's going on here? These airplanes are so tanky, guys. Airplanes are so tanky. This is what the server looks like. This is the observer mode. This is what the server sees, which is just Vix is hitting him because he's not shooting the right spot. Donald, fix your fucking game, Donald. Donald Mustard.
He's actually eliminated too.
Vivid is going to be close to getting that point. He's able to do so, and here's another replay.
Like I said, this game, one of the reasons I can't play it is it's all about your Lancy. There's like some of these players that look like they're shooting behind. They usually die early on, but like some of them make it to the end of the game, and like they can't land shots and they can't build fast enough, and then they just get plowed under. And it has nothing to do with their APM, and they're probably really good players. It has a lot to do with their actual latency and who they're facing off against. Yeah, it would actually be nice to see what those two guys were looking like, what it looked like on their screen, 100%. Like, from my perspective, I wish I could see the ping of the players, which they aren't going to show on stream, because A, there's no real reason to do that in a tournament, and B, it kind of shows you what an advantage some people have. I'm pretty sure a lot of the endgame players all have really low pings.
That would be Voyle, who was in third place, I want to say, in match.
Poor Myth is right by him as well.
It's very weird that like a lot of the big names don't even make it to the end of the game. Very weird. Myth and Ninja were in this tournament. Both of them, I even placed top 20, I believe, at the end scores. Ninja has to feel so much pressure because he basically grew bigger than what he should be allowed to grow as far as like performance goes. And people are kind of figuring it out now because he's not the only person with a low ping now. There's a lot of people that are more like they're getting pretty skilled in Fortnite, so now he gets actively compared to him all the time, rightfully so. And this is honestly, if he was trying to make like an actual play based on his not perspective, but based on his if you wanted to make a power move for his stream, you probably should consider switching games and taking his community with him, even if he's going to lose out on it. And there's going to be hit to it, but like, is it better for people to realize that you actually weren't the best? Or, you know, it's like what boxers do when they don't take matches. I think you're only required to take so many matches, and there's just boxers that just don't take matches because they might lose to them. Lose to whoever they're facing off against.
Looks like he just kind of snuck into some free loot here. It's a nice little come up for him. He's got a grappler. He's going to blow his shots here.
But anyways, not that Ninja's a bad player by any means. He just doesn't have an ultra low ping. He has a 23 MS ping, which isn't. It's pretty low, especially earlier on in the game when there weren't that many people playing. But nowadays, there's so many people playing, you're gonna run into the low ping fucks, especially in a tournament. There's a lot of big streamers that just refuse to play in pub tournaments now too. They only want to do pro events because then they get compared to average players. And it's a lot of this has to do with publicity too. A lot of it has to do with what you look like everyone else once you lose in the tournament, right? Would it have been better if Ninja didn't even participate in the tournament rather than participating in the tournament and just not doing well? Right? Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, I don't think Ninja's a bad player. He just doesn't have the ping. He doesn't have the ping to compete in this, and I think it may not. They're starting to figure it out. Big streamers are starting to figure it out, but like a lot of it has to do with your Lancy. Like I mentioned before, it's the reason I don't play Fortnite anymore is because this is all about Lancy. Until they normalize pings and add more servers to the US, this is going to be all about Lancy. And in a tournament, normalizing pings matters a lot because there's only going to be one server, and everyone has to go to it, right? So they pick the most central server, and then they normalize all the pings because that's the best you can do. And they don't do that. Like the back end of Fortnite, if people ever start to figure out what's going on here, is like lagging a lot behind tournaments and stuff like this, and just like people don't realize what's happening. And I really don't like Ninja. Like it's kind of like if you're a person like Ninja, like myself, referring to myself as I'm Ninja, but if you have kind of the personality, it feels kind of like you're just like you're giving up if you switch games, and actually you kind of are. But life doesn't work that way. It's not something where you can just barrel down on something and expect to be the best at it. And oftentimes there's you can loiter so long on the parachutes now in the air. They after they changed the parachutes redeploy, you can loiter forever.
pretty close. All right, I think you kind of figures you've been in this.
I mean, it's the same. I'm not sure. It feels like you can just loiter forever, especially one of these games. Someone basically takes a rift and then loiters out the second to last battle, like top 3. He takes the rift and basically he's just ends up in a top 2 situation because he just flies around for so long. But anyways, with Ninja, if he wants to do a power play, you should actually consider. But now he's kind of stuck because he actually started participating in tournaments, and now people, if he leaves, people are going to say it's because he does bad at tournaments and he doesn't want to look bad because people actually they caught scent of it. People are like, they're pretty good at like following trends after the fact instead of like looking at what's happening. Like they'll look at like cause and effect sort of thing. And because he participated in some tournaments now, if he doesn't do well, he basically committed himself, especially after this tournament, where now he has to participate in it. And with the way Lancey works in this game, if I was in Ninja's position, I wouldn't have participated in the tournament. There's a lot of big pro players that say they aren't going to participate in the tournament. A lot of them didn't even qualify. A lot of the pro, especially like around professional teams, not just pro as in they stream and they're professional, but rather a lot of the pro players that are on teams never even qualified for the tournament. Like I don't even think Tfue qualified. And now, like I mentioned before, like there's just some people they're like boycotting tournaments where they just aren't going to participate unless it's a basically pros only invite tournament, which is just a way of saying that they can't win, so they're just not going to participate anymore. So they make it exclusive again, which is the way the earlier Fortnite skirmishes went. There weren't qualifiers or anything. They just picked people out and then invited them basically to the tournament. Most of the time, they just invited them. And so there's always just a list of people that just got in because they existed, right? And people like that exclusivity where they're the ones that just get in regardless. And there is something wrong with that. But like I mentioned, I wish you could look at the pings of these players. I'm pretty sure a lot of these players have very low pings. If you just look at how fast they're building, you can't do this. I can't do this with 40 ms ping. Like it takes forever to actually put pieces out. You can generally tell how low someone's ping is by how fast they're building. Yeah, Ninja doesn't have a low ping. He has a pretty low ping. He doesn't have a very low ping. He has a pretty low ping. Like the Keen has like a fucking 8 ms ping, and King Richard is like a 13, and Ninja has like a 23. So you just look how fast like the bullets connect with players too after they pull the trigger. How fast they die afterwards.
Just like that, he gets elimination resource bonus. He gets shields back.
I think this is the Rift play.
It's a 1v1.
Player's gonna be right above him.
Oh no, J-Love is completely maxed out.
J-Love has everything. He has the high ground.
Such a great loadout.
No, this is 2. Never mind.
This is it. Final moments from Shaky. Can he make a big play here? He has to connect.
Shaky goes low.
But anyways, problems with Fortnite. Like it's like Blizzard actually has like
This is big for him.
they ignore the community way too much, but at some level they need to ignore the community. And like Fortnite is so heavy into like what they made, as far as
Players not allowing him to do so. He's denying everything. He makes it up to the top.
Shaky with the victory royale over.
because they made basically they're like Ninja. They made a monolith and they have to grow to the size of their bowl now, and they have to figure out how to deal with things. But some changes that they need to make to their game they can't do. Dealing with a spam build, for instance, anytime they try to deal with stuff like that, everyone just freaks out. Making the game about more than just pump and peak, which they actually mentioned. 23 is a pretty good ping. That's like kind of the bare, like less than 25 is what you need to compete on like a professional level, and then you need to have the skill obviously to meet the skill or meet the technical advantage you have. And if it says 23 in game, that means you're probably getting about 30. Depends on when you look at the ping though. Ping at the beginning of the game in Fortnite is relatively accurate when you're in the lobby. Halfway through the game, it's high. At the end of the game, it's a lot lower. So I think the best time to measure your ping is like when you're on the battle bus flying in. As weird as that sounds, before everyone deploys. But even then, that's kind of off. The menu ping is what you need to look at. The ping on the menu. That usually shows you the closest server. Not all the time, but usually shows you the closest server. Otherwise, looking at something like Cloud Ping. We'll show you the closest ping to an AWS server. In reason.
Again, right? So they're swiping them out the air. I like the way match 2 kind of played out.
Yeah, that was awesome there, and some names making it all the way to the end.
Yeah, look at the leaderboard. Let's look at the end game leaderboard, guys. It's like almost no one on here is actually.
The second Elam from Schmack where he
That's the victory one, and yeah, that was just Hydra.
Also, production value has went up. This is pretty cool. This guy kind of looks like he's a crackhead, to be perfectly honest. Let's be honest. He's probably an amazing programmer or something. You're really hyped to get this position. But he looks way too much like a crackhead. He probably could do a little bit better if he, like, he needs a different outfit here or something. A little bit different hair, different outfit. He probably could actually still do it. But his voice also isn't very good for the position. This is where you get the cute-looking chick to do the end of the game. Stereotypical cute chick that does the replays. Yeah, anyways, we're looking for the end scoring for their leaderboard. There we go. So, this is the guy, by the way. This is the guy right here that ran around with that sword during that one match and just massacred everyone. Like, he didn't even do anything before the end of the match and he just massacred everyone. Got 12 points out of that. Or 12 positions. I'm pretty sure this plus 12 is his position. So, how many of these are big names? This guy is like 2. This guy is a level 2. I think he just showed up for the tournament, probably cheating. This guy, I believe, is a big name. Yeah, none of these names ring a bell. This is 17 through 32. And these are down to like the bottom barrel points too. Once you get down to 2, there's a bunch of people that are placed 2 as far as pointing. They need like a more refined scoring system to make this a little bit more look a little bit more impressive than 2 points. And there's tons of people with 2 points. And it's all about how you scored those 2 points. Like they needed a better scoring system. Yeah, so no one here. Ninja's not here. Myth isn't here.
And he also just was consistent throughout the day.
Yeah, and I mean, he was also the reason Schmeck didn't make it out, too, because he ended that fight as well in the desert. So, well played to there. Nyko King, another dominant performance, and not so Rhett V, who come up pretty hard. Just big placements to secure themselves from not being in last. And
Young Chunk.
T-How.
Oh, wow.
Unless I'm looking at this wrong, there's no Ninja.
That was probably the most clutch point.
No Myth again. Not even top 50.
Tomorrow, and then your 50th player will be Natty and Rocky.
Where is Ninja and Myth? It's kind of surprising they even make top 50. They were in the tournament.
This is the tiebreaker though. Natty and Code Mob. Oh, it goes into average placement.
That sucks.
Players managing to get 3 eliminations, probably in a round similar to another, but
Like, to get into the top 50, they almost had to do nothing. This is actually kind of... How do you not survive till the end of the game just by playing passive? Is kind of weird. It's kind of the weird bit here. It's like, some of these players... Like to get into the end of the game, you just need to avoid people, more or less, just to get top 50, just to even make it into the next tournament. I don't know. He's definitely in the tournament. Myther is in the tournament. We saw him play. Unless they're supposed to be like wild cards or something. I don't know. Sometimes they do fucking weird shit in the tournaments. But they might not have even placed, which is kind of fucking weird.
who is that? That's exactly what we talked about. It's Trap. It's Jab. Dodging the
Almost
trap.
got eliminated by the
Players
trap.
now. Showcasing
I mean, it kind of just shows you just like how the game isn't necessarily based off skill. I want to go with that. It isn't really based off skill, and I don't mean that as like none of these players are skilled, but like, you know, Myth and Ninja are the only skilled players. But rather, it seems an awful lot. It seems an awful lot like just some of these players made it in, and they really shouldn't have been in the tournament.
Honestly, you don't want to be in a 1-by-1 that close.
No reason for you to save that one. Get out of there as soon as
First
you
time
can.
we're gonna see high ground. Oh, I was gonna say, are we gonna see some high ground Infinity Blade plays? Guess not. Chap just decides to hop right on down.
So the Infinity Blade is based a lot on the Infinity Gauntlet, and if you have too high of a ping, I tried using it on Euro. It's absolutely impossible. because all your abilities are server side. Like everything you do is server side,
Not want to fight.
No, they don't. They don't want to deal with this.
and it is super unresponsive to your gameplay.
You have the lead on the zone here. Is he
Tfue placed. I don't think he's. I didn't see him in this tournament though. So I saw Ninja and Myth. No, Tfue I don't think placed. Yeah, he didn't actually place.
There are a lot of guys
Like Cypher didn't place.
to maintain that high ground. Chat keeps coming in and cutting down the high ground, or not the high ground, but
Yeah, we just talked about that. He didn't place.
Sat finds himself up in the air, gets pushed right back down, but now it's a battle going on here.
Yeah, like you just basically focus. Unfortunately, the guy that focused him down got third partied, but
He did it for the good of humanity. Saf did it for the good of humanity.
Wait
That
a second,
is.
but that means now the Infinity Blade's just there.
you have to attack them, and there's tons of people, as we saw in that last game, the ending game, that just don't they don't even look. They just think someone else is gonna take care of them. Fucking weird.
Can almost guarantee yourself.
All right, guys. Moving on. Anyways, they've improved the tournament. There's some production value things, like they do the end game recap, which is really cool. They have enough plebs there that can actually capture the highlights at the end of the game. That's really good. They added the highlight, which is really nice. So when you, like I was talking about before, being able to see people in structures, they added the ability to see people through the structures now, just like from the get-go with their color. Like each person gets a color on them. You can see people through the structures, and it goes between the third-party observer mode and then also the third-person, first-person, third-person observer mode. So when the camera's flying around, you can see them, and you can kind of correlate with their actual, I believe this is their player number. You might even want to just, like, slap the player number on their back or something. Like, not in the game, but you can see it from observer. So if they just have, like, the person's player number on them when they're in first person, and relate it. It took me a while to figure this out. I thought this was their ping, or maybe their kills, or their placement or something. I believe the number on their character is actually just their player number in the tournament. So this is 34. It's like an actual sporting event.
I don't think it matters. I think he's good for a little bit, yeah.
But being able to see people through walls helps immensely with being able to parse what's going on around. But they also, once again, I've mentioned before, they don't use third person enough. This to help you see where people are. This is very, very useful. The flying camera.
One more good hop to make.
It's not as in the action, but it allows you to see what's going on. Because there's just so much at this game that you just miss. There's so many things in this game you miss.
That's so huge.
That's a point from onto Twitter's Hansen.
Can't quite
And
see high ground there, so he's gonna be
yeah.
ultimate low. No one's gonna want to come down there. Oh no.
Some people that get ahead of themselves, guys. There's so many people I saw die with Infinity Blade in the smoke.
Reloads
Kind
on
of
your
panic
screen.
building into himself. And this is the top 5 now.
But it's what the game needs. It needs something that disrupts the fucking builds. Because there's no... Like I said, this game needs a stamina system. It needs something that disrupts building. You need to have, like, limitations to building. So you can't just build everywhere. This guy has a really low ping.
Plays in the
Seems like a difference in Lance would make fighting versus sword guy a nightmare, yeah. And if you have to have a low ping to fight with the sword. Oh, this is the one I was talking about earlier where the guy riffs up and then basically just floats down the entire match.
Gonna wait this one out.
He wants to wait
Basically
until
turns into a third party.
right here and then nosedive. And it's Emad that gets that. And now he's at the mercy of Rux.
Rux is the last player here, and player's gonna fall on the outside.
Oh, no, he
Ruxo has
couldn't land a
so
shot.
many shields, so much HP. And he does get above him, Linane. Against Rux. But Linane has 34 HP.
Wow.
And Rux
Unfortunately.
gets the victory royale.
Unfortunately, just could not dive down soon enough. Emad gets traded out by Rux, which is going to tank up the player on the lowest area.
I do like the recap that they do here with looking back at the builds. They started doing that too. It's very nice.
System just floating around.
Yeah.
Anyways, covered most of it. Yeah, people are going to bitch to get rid of the Infinity Sword, especially in tournaments. They're going to bitch about the airplanes to get rid of them because it's unfair that people can fly around.
The scene is completely different.
Planes need to be fixed, but they shouldn't be removed by any means. That's something the game needs.
Locations might be like 2 points, really. To
More things that fucking change up the game from just sitting in 1x1s.
Enough. You just want
And I mean, it just goes, like, the whole reason it's needed is because we saw at the end of the game where the guy just literally just rips through everyone with the sword and just no one reacts to him.
11 players remain.
This guy right here, where all he's doing is jumping around. You get, like, this one guy that actually kind of put up a fight. He missed his shots, but he put up a fight. And then you got a bunch of other guys that just don't fucking do anything. Like, they just pretend that he's not there.
here from where
or just try to build. All they do is build. Like, that's it. Like that is their first reaction, is just to build, and that's it. This is why the game needs to be changed up. Why it shouldn't be just about building. You got a bunch of people that can't even. Yeah, that one guy, he wasn't even reacting. He's just building. He just got slaughtered right there. Another guy that just didn't react to him. This guy kind of does, but he isn't really able to even shoot him.
He's in big bonus territory. He's getting a point for every elim at this point in time. For match 5.
And there's just a bunch of people that just ignore him again, like the guy on that platform there. Completely oblivious to him. Even though this guy's making a lot of noise and he's jumping around, look at all the ruckus he's making. He's making a lot of ruckus, and just they don't do anything. They're just like bots, literally like bots. And then people talk about them being bots because they don't build. Like, then there's just some people that just build, and that's all they do. This is insane. I mean, it just shows you that just some people really shouldn't even be in this tournament, that are in this tournament, because they just don't even react to stuff that's happening around them. But this is cream of the crop. Yeah, I love demo night. Don't back when I played TF2 all the time, I love demo night with the charging targe, and then not the decapitator. The decapitator is one that adds damage. The claymore. It was a claymore. The one that they nerfed all that shit. But demo night. Yeah, I miss demo night with the lock and load. Oh yeah. Oh, I'm pissed off a lot of people with that. Because it's something that really, really just changed up the game, right? It made it different. There's just tons of people that can't even react to it. It's why the game needs jetpacks. It needs more things that deal with structures. It needs limitations to structures. Because at the end of the game, it's just turning into people and just one by ones that literally are like brain dead. You know, these are the top of the line players, and all they do is build. You know, it's just like, hey, look, this guy's a sword, and this guy's just, he's just sitting here with his fucking pad walking around. And you're like, what are you doing? What are you doing? It doesn't matter if you feel like you should get above someone. You can't. You're stuck. You have to deal with this. This is your life. And I'm sure in like a month from now, everyone's going to get figured out, and you aren't going to see this shit. But these are the kind of people that can't, quote-unquote, adapt. And then, like, anytime something new comes up that changes the meta, people bitch about it until it disappears. Like the SMGs, which actually competed with shotguns, are basically now gone. Or the different types of shotguns are now gone. All you have is a pump shotgun. Or that people were able to do other things than just build. It's gone. It's all fucking gone. It is pump and peek, and that's it. And anytime anything else comes up, people just raise it. Yeah, just like, look at this shit in chat here. All they want is, because their big streamer friends are all going to talk about how horrible this tournament is and what an abomination of an abortion of a tournament this is, because someone is able to swing a sword and, completely putting aside the fact that just people walked around with building mats out.
So right here, he's trying to do his best.
We'll listen to Crackhead for a second here, who I'm sure is actually a really nice guy, and he probably has a PhD or something in programming. Two things you can do to get someone out of 1x1, guys, is you have to take over his wall, or you have to... What's the other one? There's two of them. And I can't take over walls because you need to have a lower ping than the guy to take his wall, if the person's better than you. Or not better than you. If you're just remotely skilled, you need to have a low ping to take his wall, and you can't do that. Look at all the nays. The nays from how that tournament ended, or that match ended. Explosives don't matter. You can't get people out of 1x1 in explosives because you can't hurt them inside of it, so they just rebuild instantly. Usually how 1x1 invulnerability ends is the person attacking the outside either gets third party or he leaves because he gets bored. But generally the only two things you can actually do to get rid of, to get someone out of 1x1 is spamming the wall and replacing tiles. But that doesn't work either. Those need low latency. There's one that I'm missing. There's two things, and I'm missing the second one right now because he's talking about the first one. But you can't edit and take over tiles unless you have a low ping. Am I starting Counter-Strike Royale? I haven't watched it, and honestly, just the whole idea of it is an abortion. But the reviews I've seen of it basically pin it out as that it's absolutely horrible and it's an abortion, which is to be expected because Counter-Strike is a horrible game. It's an old, ancient... It's like back in the day where people fenced or something, Like I guess they still fence nowadays, but, it's like something. It's like where people dueled, you know, and walked with muskets and shot at each other from 20 paces, you know, something like that. And you're like, yeah, no, yeah, things have changed since then. You know, it's sure, it's a time-honored tradition Counter-Strike is a time-honored tradition. It is not remotely reflective of modern video game or video game development, and it should not be taken seriously anymore. It's 20 years old. It's old. It's antiquated. It was good for its time, and it's still fun to go back and play on occasion, but it should not influence modern video games remotely. And like I said, that was my whole rant was for when we're playing like Battlefield is like Shroud bitched enough where he got them to put ADS accuracy in, where basically you're always 100% accurate when you ADS, which doesn't fucking make sense because the whole reason you have accuracy is to make up for the fact that some guns aren't wieldy. You know, because if you have a sniper rifle in real life, if you have a Barrett, you don't fucking swing Barretts around when you're taking snipe shots, right? Your accuracy goes all over the place. Accuracy, especially in older games, like I've mentioned before, Raven Shield probably has one of the best examples of, which is an old Rainbow Six game, best examples of gun balance. Not necessarily that all the guns were balanced, but how they actually had to influence it. So things that influence your accuracy, like movement, the type of weapon you're using. Some weapons, especially SMGs, will come together closer. Some weapons are only really good if you're in a stationary position, like an LMG, because it's a big, bulky, heavy weapon. And while it recoils less, and you can generally, your crosshair almost does not move, especially if you're laying down. You have to put yourself into a risky position, like laying down. And with the sniper rifle, you have to wait a bit for it to come together. And with the SMG, you know, there's only a certain limitation on how accurate the weapon becomes because it's a fucking SMG and the barrel is like 2 feet, you know? Yeah, the barrel's like 2 feet. It's like 24 inches. Whereas like a normal rifle is like fucking, what 4 feet? That's actually pretty long. No, it's about 3 feet. Yeah. 3.5 feet. Like out of an assault rifle? It's much bigger. It's also something that you can't just swing around in close quarters and expect to be 100% accurate. And obviously, you know, you can't take life and just apply it to a video game because it makes a really shitty video game. But at the same time, there's reasons that we have weapons and they look the way they do. You don't look at the weapon and make it like the weapon in real life because that's the way real life is. You have to understand that there's differentiations between weapons, and that's why they turned out and look the way that they do. Because they're designed for different roles and they excel at different things. Otherwise, we'd have all one weapons that looks the same, and we don't because they do different things. So they're still neighing about the end of the tournament with the guy just jumping around, and like these are the normal plebs guys. These are like normal people, and they aren't neighing because people didn't respond, like they didn't adapt to the fact that there's a fucking like guy swinging a sword around and like at least fire your gun a couple times at him before you die. They're neighing because a guy just swung a sword and basically won a tournament. Completely putting aside that basically, you know, like, the tournament shouldn't, like people should be able to actually like, deal with something like that, and they don't. Yeah, Counter-Strike Royale, I heard, is an abortion. There's probably a reason that's not big on Twitch right now. Or is it? Is it? They're all tournament channels. Looks like this is just all tournament channels. Good. Counter-Strike is a great channel, or a great place to stream, guys. There is Boff. Let's see how many people are playing Battle Royale. 1. There's no way he's actually playing back out. But just a bunch of people playing the DLC content. 2. 3. 4. Maybe. A lot of people just playing the normal game. For zombies. Overwatch. Oh my God, they changed their picture. By the way, this is something that Fortnite does with every season. Is they change their community picture. Other games need to do that more often. If they give a shit about their game, they need to make more new cover art for it. And they don't. There's a lot of games that just haven't changed at all. Warframe's back up, but this is because there's a drop event right now going on. Like, it's funny, like last week we looked at Warframe and there's like 1,000 people watching it. Less than that, 500. No, it was about 1,000 people who were watching Warframe. Drop event happens and then it's like, 40,000 people watching the game. Anyways, so what I wanted to cover was that. In addition to that, one thing that's kind of interesting, guys, is unless they have a partnered event with Twitch, they really should stream on YouTube, and they don't. Like, they need to have, because YouTube has a lot of tools for setting up, like, a premiere event. YouTube is kind of weird. It's more like actual events. If you want to live stream on YouTube, it's more like an event thing rather than just like a Twitch live stream. It's more formal, but at the same time, it gives you a lot of tools. It gives you a lot of tools to actually do that. And if we look here at Fortnite, they eventually upload it.
What's up, Fortnite community?
What's up? Oh my God, it's Mooney. He's on cocaine. Anyways, if we look here at YouTube, their live event isn't up here. Kind of weird. They really need to actually add this in. YouTube, I want to say, like, if you're, the grass is greener on Twitch, generally speaking, although if you can make it on YouTube, there's less competition, so. But anyways, on YouTube, they don't actually have, there's a way to set up events on YouTube so you can start events and you can actually have it count down. And they didn't actually do that. They don't. None of their events were live on YouTube, which is kind of weird. They could be locked into an agreement with Twitch, which I hope not. However, they should be live on both platforms at the same time, and it doesn't actually look like they are. And I don't know why, because YouTube is generally a place where you actually see more formal content. It's actually a place where you go for actual events, where stuff actually happens, right? And YouTube generally does that, and they don't. They upload it. I mean, this is 3 hours ago, right? But this, I'm pretty sure this was not live. Get my laptop right now. Pretty sure they don't actually stream this live on YouTube. Yeah, something, I think they just uploaded this because on my laptop, the most current, I had this open earlier tonight, on my laptop, the most current event is from 4 days ago. And this happened tonight. So I'm pretty sure they don't stream this live on YouTube. Maybe they do. Maybe they do, guys, and I'm not keeping up with this. But I swear I looked earlier tonight and it wasn't up. Yeah, maybe I'm just derping out on this. Maybe they already do stream on YouTube, but I'm pretty sure they don't. Let's assume they do. Let's assume they do. But on my laptop, it's showing the most recent ones from 4 days ago. It's kind of weird. Like when you do web pages, some web pages have active content where it'll just update in real time, and I'm pretty sure YouTube does that. If you keep the page open, it'll just update itself. Didn't Rocket League explode when it became free to play on PS4? There was a bit where Rocket League was big on Twitch and it passed. There's a couple times where that happened. But anyways, if they don't have stuff live on YouTube, I assume they do. But if they don't, they should definitely do it. Let's assume that they do now. I swear they weren't. I checked that earlier tonight, and I swear they didn't. Anyways. Alright, guys, we're going to cover the Reddits here real quick, and then we're going to play Battlefield 5. There has to be tons and tons of people bitching about the airplanes and the sword. Let's take a peek real quick. This it's always a treat going to this Reddit. Carrying 2 pumps, completely unbalanced, has to be removed. What's better than pump and peek, guys? Pump and peek. Jumping 4 times after you land, obviously overpowered and broken. A fucking sword introduced the morning of competitive tournament that is extremely hard to counter late game. 100% okay. Yeah, yep. And this is why we don't visit here, guys. Once again, like I mentioned, just people just thinking that you can't fucking shoot at someone with a sword. I have taken it upon myself to disable the sword in as many games as I possibly can. Is it just pictures of him dropping off the side of the cliff? Every game I drop near the polar peak, I try to kill a sword carrier, pick it up myself immediately, and drop it off the edge of the map. There'll be a compilation video. Imagine working for a year to qualify for Winter Royale and then not actually dealing with the fucking circle rotation and dying to the side of a mountain. Oh, it's about the sword? About airplanes. Have a guy that crashes his plane into your builds and smack you twice with a sword. This is what this game has become, guys. Like I've talked about before with Battle Royale, when spam building became the meta, like they have to deal with it, and the longer they leave it, it's going to fester, and it's going to become the way the game has to be played. There has to be one way of doing it. Like, these guys probably didn't even, like, the whole premise for these arguments is that, like, you know, it's a horribly unbalanced thing, but they don't even look at the people that just, like, backpedal with their mats out. Like, what the fuck? Like, some people don't even respond to the stimuli of someone swinging a sword at them. Oh, Ninja on Winter Royale. Let's watch.
Dude, the people, the players in the general chat right now are just raging. It's like we qualified for this when Risky was still in it. Obviously, the snow map, that's understandable. They're not gonna literally delay an entire massive update or in season for a cup.
Well, the same two things.
But to add the sword and have these planes in this tournament is just, this is not what I qualified for, man.
You could before we even step foot on the competitive, you knew exactly what this is about, and what I mentioned before when we're covering the actual skirmish is people freaking out about one thing that's basically no different than a pillbox on the ground, which is a pillbox flying around in the air, and the other thing is a sword, which no one, like more than that, is like 4/5 of the players that got killed by a sword swinger, like by the guy with Infinity Blade, didn't even fire back at him. Yeah. Twitter blowing up because of Epic's decision to add a sword in competitive. Yep. Yeah, you could totally see what this is going to be before we even step. Epic had to know what was going to happen when they added that to the game. Let's see it.
Stuff like that. Like, you guys, you know, most of you guys are just like, wow, like, these guys are fucking on liquid. They play games professionally. They're, like, living the dream. And you're absolutely right. We are. But, like, we are living the dream. But we only got here because we have a passion for the game that we play. And we have a passion for the competitive and
going at this from the emotional angle.
To win. Like, we don't care about anything else. We want to fucking win. We care about our communities, obviously. But when it comes to games like that, dude, we don't give a fuck how much money we're winning. We want to win. And when you get thrown into a game where it doesn't feel like you can win because you don't have a fucking sword or you don't have a plane.
Or you don't have a fucking 15 ms ping. Vivid has like a fucking 18 ms ping, by the way.
In a game where you grew up playing.
Yeah, okay. Yep. Like I said, you let spam build fester, it just ruins your fucking game. At this point, they almost should just split the game in two and just make like vanilla battle royale, not updated, and just let the community drift off there into the open sea of Counter-Strike, and then like actually update the actual like the legitimate game. Yeah, like these guys are so ingrained in pump and peek. There's no way they're going to be able to change for anything. And honestly, neither of these guys died to the sword. Neither of these guys died to the airplanes or the sword. Both those guys, I watched Ninja get sniped in the face from someone that was like 30 meters away. One of his deaths. But both these guys are basically looking for outs now. They're blaming their performance in the tournament on the things that were added to the tournament. Which actually, I don't know how Vivid died, so maybe he died to the sword swing. I didn't see that, but neither of these guys actually did well. And basically, they're just hopping on the easy out train is what's going on here. Yeah, I just want to play Fortnite, not Star Wars. Yeah, like Epic should actually just bring back classic Fortnite with Pump and Peek and sail that shit out to the open sea. Like they waited too long to change spam build, and they waited too long to basically attack the whole idea of the only way to play the game is with a shotgun, let alone double shotguns. And they need to ship that shit off to the sea. Like at this point, it's like you have to cut off your fucking diseased arm and ship it out, because this is basically the reflection of what all the big streamers are going to be harping for the next 2 weeks, even longer than that, maybe 3 weeks. They're just going to be shitting a storm about this. And after they removed, After they removed C4, after they toned down P90s, there were people talking about wanting explosives removed from the game. Like they could literally just make this game snipers and shotguns, and then maybe an assault rifle, and then building, and then just ship that shit off to the sea with all these guys on it. Because this is what the community became. We talked about this before all along while we've been playing Fortnite, while we've been playing other games. If you allow the community, if you allow the game balance to stagnate, if you allow one way to take over the game, that's all it becomes. Regardless of how new this game's only been out a year. But these guys seem to assert, like, this is like Counter-Strike. They seem to assert that this game, like, what was Vivid was talking about playing this for his childhood or something fucking stupid. Like, these guys, like, they're taking the angle that because this game was played a certain way for, like, 5 or 6 months, that it has to always be played this way forever. And that's the only way. And it's the time at which they became big players, and now they're big streamers, and now they have a lot of influence over the actual community. And they're packaging all this shit up as, you know, Vivid took the emotional argument on it, whereas, like, there's all these people just wanting to win, and, oh, it's only because you don't have an airplane or you don't have a sword or something fucking stupid. You know, completely putting aside low latency advantage, which we've talked about multiple times on my channel, but don't tell big streamers about that who have low pings, because they don't want to hear that, because that's what helps them do good in the first place, right? Low latency advantage is a big fucking deal, and there's a reason basically Twitch is sorted by low latency players, for Fortnite in particular. Anyways, like this, I don't know why I even visited Fortnite competitive. I knew what this subreddit was going to be. This is why we don't cover shit on this. It's basically like, if you can imagine what the general consensus is of big streamers, you're going to find it here. And that's what this is basically comprised of, is the consensus of big streamers. Which is, once again, we talked about two things even before we visited the Reddit, which is people are going to want to get rid of the planes and they're going to want to get rid of the sword. And I mentioned they probably should have gave it more time for people to get ready for the sword before they threw it in competitive play. That's not because the sword shouldn't be in competitive play, but because you should allow people time to acclimate to something you add to the game. And like just if you want to take what we saw in the gameplay as kind of like just people's inability to cope with a new situation, which Fortnite should all be about, all new situations. Like, you just have people holding building mats, and like they look like lambs to the slaughter. Like, not even, there's no way to even sugarcoat that. They're just like guys holding building mats, like looking stunned at a guy with a sword. Like, how'd you get in here, man? I don't understand. This blows my mind. You, even though the game, like, if you are playing in a professional tournament, you should read fucking patch notes and you should watch streams before you fucking play the tournament. But like some of those guys, like we watched them at the end of the battle royale, like in the last battle, just like walking around with mats with their ass hanging out, just waiting to get plugged by someone's dick, you know? And you're like, why don't you fire your gun? That's part, like, and you could say, oh, it's it's something new to the game. They didn't have time to react. That's like part of being a good player, is being able to adapt, as many streamers have put it, which only really reflects to them playing pump and peak. Adapt to a situation, unless it doesn't actually cater to the way they play. Adapt to things, and then you see a bunch of people walking around with their fucking mats out, and you're like, huh, okay. I'm healing with 30 plus bandages and wailings during Heat 1 of winter.
It was just like, oh, let me come here and ruin your day. Bye.
And although Vivid did have an advantage, he had the higher
Is in
advantage,
whaling
he
still?
on the counter press.
Is this the guy that killed this guy or something? What's going on here? I don't know what this is. Okay. Epic Games doesn't want to see or want Fortnite competitive as an esport, but as an advertisement for Fortnite itself. Yes, 100% true. And there's nothing wrong with that. Because there's no way Battlegrounds could become an esport in and of itself, just because of the way Battlegrounds works. If you ever look at any of the other competitive games like Counter-Strike or Overwatch, or like MOBAs like Dota or League of Legends, it has a very, very concise format that's very, very rigid and is not open to change. And Epic mentioned that they weren't going to do that. It was going to be a more inclusive tournament that wasn't going to be like other esports, right? Lane should only have fuel that refills the hangers. No, there should be, like I said, one of the things the game really needs is a stamina bar for building, so you can only build so fast, so long. And there's no way they could float a change like that in the current climate for this game. Epic really just kind of, they waited way too long to, like, Donald, you waited way too long to address the problem of spam building, and this is what you got. You got fucking gangrene growing in your fucking competitive Reddit right now. And, like, this is all they want. They want pump and peak. Is the only thing they want in this game is pump and peak. That's it. Nothing else, just pump and peak. Anything that kills them in any other way than pump and peak, which largely relates to your ability for a low, like, relates to your ability to maximize a low ping through edits and through looking over the sides of structures before people can respond to you. They don't want it because that's what gets them ahead. There's a lot of things wrong with this game, and the big ones right here that's just like festering is pump and peak and low ping advantage. Like, if they got rid of low ping advantage, this game would play so much different. They really need, if they want to get rid of like this mindset, they're probably going to have to attack like what I've been talking about for the last 12 months now, which is low ping advantage. Because a lot of how fast you can build, how fast you can edit, how fast you can respond to people, and how well your shots register, in addition to how well people can register shots in you, depends on your latency. In addition to how fast you can reload and combo weapons, so swapping to a new weapon, pulling the trigger after you swap to the new weapon. How fast you can refire grenades, down to basically how fast the grenades are supposed to be thrown. Like, projectiles only fire so fast, and a lot of it has to do with your ping. Go play on Euro or wherever you are, plus 100 MS, and then you can see the stark contrast. And it's not that it disappears. It's not that all of a sudden you have no latency when you play on your closest server. It keeps going down. It's not binary. It's not just like you get lag when you're at a Euro server compared to an NA server if you live in the NA. It's not the way it works. This is where we're at, guys. This is what's going on, Donald. But like competitive, if they ventured into competitive, there's no way that they were going to avoid stuff like this. There's absolutely no way. You got to take this head on. But like, if they got rid of low latency advantage, there'd be a lot less call for pump and peak. People would, have less problems with spam weapons. I want to say, like, they wanted to get rid of in season 5, because you wouldn't be able to hit these like clutch edit shots, because you'll edit and try to fire a gun and you're going to hit like half the shot on someone, and then it's not going, it's not going to have the same effect for all that work that you just put in. And then you're going to try to do a little bit more risky things if you want to secure a kill. Like, instead of putting a top on your building, you're going to have to strafe over the top of it and pump and peak like that, because you'll have more chance to refire, and you'll be able to actually finish a thing off, because you won't have one decisive hit. You aren't going to run around in the open and act like fucking Rambo all the time because all the shots land like a quarter second behind your character and never damaged you. It's like the whole. I almost want to say like this whole game is going to be completely different if they normalize pings and add more servers to the U.S. because it will. It will change how people see this game and how they react to it, and the balancing changes that they call to. But in general, in here, like this is what happens. We had 5 months of spam build before they started attacking spam build. Before they started introducing SMG changes and allowing you to actually, SMGs to actually do something. 5 months, and that got so ingrained into the community. This is basically all we're going to see now. From now on, anytime anything disrupts the pump and peak meta, this is all you're going to see. This is the only thing. But I'm sure they've heard tons of this already. But I felt the need to open this up, basically as just I told you so after the fact, But you guys are right, this thing is insane.
Huh?
Yep. Animated start screen. Good idea. Other games have had it. Better make crack shot from the trailer. Polymer clay. You don't want to worry about changes. You should become a speedrunner for old games or just play Counter-Strike. Actually, the short they did for this game, I hope they use in a commercial, to be perfectly honest. They could totally use it as a Christmas commercial. Very well done. It felt like a Hallmark card. It's like a Hallmark movie or something. People go, oh, look at the Nutcracker. Oh, season 7 or whatever it is right now. That's not what I expected when you said 15% off. That's a graphical glitch. It's funny. So much bullshit going on in a few seconds. Yeah, stuff like that should actually... Stuff like that, your plane should explode. There's like a lot of just really common vehicle tweaks. Why didn't it... I thought you got redeploy when you hop off an airplane. What? Not. Okay. Feel free to hire me, Donald. Feel free to hire me. You can even give me your job and then just retire or something. Someone really needs to explain why certain things are bad in this game, and just instead the community just becomes more and more ingrained. Infinity Blade is really OP in squads when you have people supporting you, insanely OP. I've definitely seen that, because you basically have multiple roles going on here. You have a close, a melee, and then you have like teammates that can support you with missiles and other things like that right there. Yeah. 100% OP in 100% OP in squads. I've already seen that. When you have people that can basically make up for the fact that the only thing you can do is melee, it makes it a lot easier because they can just lay down fire when you destroy structures. But as I mentioned before, I actually feel as though this game has room for classes. Not that something that limits what you can use necessarily as much as the sword does. Did you even kill any of them? Not as much as the sword does, but actually accentuates the way you play the game. Knocked one down. Oh. I think he only knocked one of those 4 people down. But Epic, like, if you make a new game, guys, I thought they were going to do that with Fortnite because all the stuff they kept adding for it. The one thing that they left alone for too long in the game, though, was building, and it festered. On patch 7.01. You tilt the towers, guys. It does. This is a lot of people. I do wonder if this has something to do with the big streamer being in the game, not just because of the sword. Even Tilted Towers, when Tilted Towers is popping, you never saw this many people landing there. Or the Infinity Gauntlet, for that matter. Seriously, how can anyone counter this? Vivid has a very, or not, this isn't Vivid. This is Nick. Nick also has an extremely low ping. He turns it off, though, so you can't see it. A couple times he's had it on, it's like 13 ms or something. See where this guy's shots are, by the way? So if we're talking about low ping advantage here, guys, let's just segue past the sword. Watch where all the shots are going on his screen. Look where he's landing, and look where the shots are going. This guy's shooting at him. Putting that aside, the guy didn't pull out a shotgun. When you go into close quarters, immediate shotgun. And then he should have switched to a spam weapon. But on the way down here, see the shots? They're all behind him. His character is like this, coming down. And the guy below has a little bit of an angle. So when he's coming down, his shots are basically ending up behind his character. Or the other way. That? No. Anyways, he's at an angle. So the shots, he's not coming directly down at this guy. Shots this guys are firing aren't actually able to hit him, even though it looks like they're hitting him on his screen. The low ping advantage, pretty big deal, guys. Like I said, it completely changed the game. They normalized pings. But this guy, he didn't even pull out his shotgun. He didn't pull out his shotgun. He didn't try to SMG him. He just sat there with his dick up his ass, thumb up his ass, until he died. What we saw in the tournament, too, is just people not actually responding to it. Yeah. Yep. At least there's a little bit some opposite side of the spectrum in the discussion. That's good, but not enough to actually make up for how much hate the sword is getting, or how much hate the airplanes are getting. It really isn't that hard to counter. Just use balloons and you'll win. There was a guy in the tournament that already did that. I don't know if this is a clip from the tournament. There's a guy in the tournament. This is like fucking using the jetpack. I remember just playing with the jetpack and people just not even shooting at you. In this case, he can't hit him because he has a sword. Oh, this is from the tournament. Yeah, and then there occasionally are people that are actually smart, guys. But it is fucking hilarious that there's just some people that just walk around and try to outbuild someone that has a sword. And while everyone doesn't have access to balloons, and you shouldn't require to have balloons to kill one person. That being said, the guy with this Guy with the balloons here could just snap the tiles in the back here and then expose him and kill him. He isn't even doing. Yeah, that's pretty one-sided. Imagine how quickly you would have ended if he hits his shots. Your crosshair goes wide. You are using balloons like the jetpack. Well, that's basically all this Reddit's going to be for like the next 2 weeks, or the competitive Reddit at least is going to be talking about Infinity Blade and how broken it is. Even those ways of dealing with it, and you should just put your fucking, you should go balls deep when you see someone charging at you with it, because that's all you can do. Never seen Overwatch fuck up this badly. Let's take a look at the Overwatch Reddits, guys. They can't get out of their spawn? A mirror match game, right? Huh. Overwatch patch 11 December rundown. Let's take a look at the Overwatch Reddits, guys. Or Overwatch patch notes. No, I don't want to watch your stupid video. Also, there was a patch for Battlefield 5 that happened yesterday, which we didn't cover because the patch notes didn't go up before basically I was done streaming. So, take a look at the second event. 12/11. So yesterday, yes. As launch, we support Dolby Atmos for players who use headphones. Now we're expanding support to include Windows 10 implementation for spatial audio. Spatial audio is configured in Windows 10 settings. Take priority with settings in the game client. This allows more option cleaning. Settings for Windows Sonic headphones, Dolby Atmos for headphones, and Dolby Atmos home theater. All really weirdly branded stuff, which is kind of trying to make up for the fact that EAX went and died in a fire. But not really. I will have a golden tint when Ash equips her golden weapon. Cool. So, Bastion is still not going to be used. However, they made him even more like a laser rifle. Just too many downsides to using Bastion. Bastion is one of those characters that should have been about burst damage, and instead he's about sustained immobile damage, which gets you killed in Overwatch. They made Bridget, we talked about this stuff before when they had to put her on a PTR. Bridget's more of a healer now. And basically she does absolutely no damage. Try to nerf Doomfist because he's in like every tournament now. Made it so people can react more to him. Right now the meta, or the common complaint in Overwatch is that it's too much like a MOBA. It's too much about CC. Not enough about like actual aim, so they do things like add Catherine, or not Catherine, Ash to the game. Now they're nerfing the other characters that cause CC effects. This being one of them when he knocks you up. They buffed McCree's right click, even though McCree's right click was still good. And buffed Torbjorn's area denial with Molten Core. Oh, okay. Here's a link. Okay. BOF, as I mentioned before, we're probably going to stop covering BOF. Yep. Seen that from Overwatch where Sombra's hacking stuff and you get disconnected. Everyone's favorite thing on Reddit, Reaper from Black Ops 3 is now in Blackout. They added a combat vehicle to Blackout. Turret. For 24 hours, firing range contains an overabundance of new weapons. The new weapons also come in gold variants. Weapons. It could be that there's a lot of items that weren't in Blackout from the normal game that they're adding now. Three-round burst, 45 caliber submachine gun. Festive melee weapon for the holiday season's Secret Santa. Their patch notes for Black Ops are like an absolute mess. They're just like everything's all over the place. They don't like categorize stuff properly. I thought we were already talking about multiplayer. Now we're talking about multiplayer for PS4 and Xbox One. Blackout? Is this Blackout for PS4 and Xbox One, or just for all? Was like, oh, this is PS4? Why is PS4 down there and now it's down here too? Fucking weird. Interesting. Coolest shit I've ever seen. Like a fucking knight. Like a medieval game. Okay. Alrighty. Let's play some Battlefield 5, guys. Battlefield 5. Okay, moving on. Done with podcast. Yeah, that's going to be tough. I do actually kind of feel for Epic and the shit that they're going to have to deal with now if they ever want to move away from Pump and Peak into anything at all. They're going to have a rough time, I guess. Gen Rage, yeah. I think so. As I mentioned before, I'm trying a new modem out, and I think my new modem is worse than my old one. I'm not sure. Because, I mean, I played Battlefield 5, and it felt like last night that my hit registration was worse in general. Like, I was just shooting people, and they weren't dying as much, and I was dying a lot. So, we'll see. We'll keep an eye on that. I don't know why that popped up. Yeah. Like, I don't... Ninja in particular, both those clips that we saw, those big streamers talking about stuff, neither of those guys actually lost because of the sword or the airplanes, but they're trying to relate their issues with why they lost to the airplanes.